Very good. All right. I'd like to call to order the August 23rd, 2023 workshop. We have an addition to the agenda, and we're going to do it first. If you're here about the cold weather shelter, that may be of interest to you. Jordan, you want to, I'm not even going to say anything about it. I'm going to just let you run with the ball.
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to provide an update on the emergency shelter siting application from the cold weather shelter and bring this up as a topic for the next step in the process. As you're aware, the cold weather shelter resubmitted or rescinded their previous application and then submitted a new application last week on August 15th. And in terms of sort of the next steps in reviewing the application and ultimately issuing a decision, staff would like to recommend to the council that the council holds a public hearing on the application and set a date for that, take testimony, review the application, and ultimately make a decision. We're looking at a possible date of September 5th, which is 2 weeks. That will give us enough time to assemble staff reports and the materials and give notice to the public about the public hearing. And then we'll probably need to look at a second date as a special meeting for a final written decision after the public hearing and deliberations. So I'll turn it back to you for a discussion, but we're looking at September 5th as a date, and it would be to hold a public hearing with ultimately leading to a decision by the city council on the application.
So regardless of what processes have or have never been done on a topic like this, we don't have a lot to follow with other than, there's nothing leading us. So I think it's a prudent decision to have city council to make that decision instead of staff. So I agree with that. And I'd like to make sure that all the other councilors agree with that step.
I'm in agreement.
Okay.
Yep. Me too.
And September 5th seems like a reasonable day after the discussions of everybody's availability, both on staff and city council. So that seems like a good idea. Gary?
Mr. Mayor, you forgot somebody. I also think it's a good idea.
Okay. And I think it's fair to tell the public that we realize that we're the elected officials here in town. You guys elected us to make some of these hard decisions. The advice of, or at least the really light guidelines coming from the governor's office in HB 2006 talks about having staff make the decision. And we think that for the City of Sisters, our best format to do this is in a public forum in a special meeting for this particular topic, and that we'll make the decision based on the application and what we've heard from the public, because we're the people that hear from the public. So we just think that it'd be better for us to make the decision instead of just, no offense, I don't mean to just a staff member, but we're the elected officials here in town, so we're going to make that decision. And we know it's not going to be an easy one, and we know that a portion of proponents and opponents of the cold weather shelter, one side will probably not be as happy as the other side, but that's how we have to go about it, and we'll worry about what comes after that. So sorry about that, but that's, I think that we should set the date on the schedule. I think everybody's in agreement, and again, it's a tough topic, but that's what we're here to do. So that's what's gonna happen. So we hope that you guys, anybody who's here about the shelter situation will come on September 5th, Tuesday night. I think we're gonna start a little earlier, maybe like 5 p.m. So we have enough time to talk about that issue before we move any further with that particular topic. You're still more than welcome to speak to us at the regular city council meeting at 6:30 p.m. tonight. There is a public communication process that you can speak at during that meeting, but I don't think we have anything on the agenda to speak about this anymore tonight other than taking public comments on the issue at 6:30. So thank you very much. Is there anything else we need to talk about?
I don't believe so. We'll prepare the notices and get the word out and share information about the date of September 5th at 5 p.m.
All right. Anybody else have any comments? All right, thank you very much. All right, now on to our published schedule. First up is Lieutenant Davis, Deschutes County Sheriff Office update. Is it hot?
I think so.
Okay.
Hear me okay?
Yeah, just make sure you speak into it, please, just so everybody can hear you. There's a lot of people on Zoom.
Okay. So as far as the update goes for us, we're moving into a time of transition. We have Deputy Morris, who's been selected to move into our detective division. He was one of our original City of Sisters deputies. Is moving into that special assignment next week. And Josh Westfall, who was about our fourth deputy that came in to the team, is moving to our sister school resource deputy position. He'll start there next Monday and have a week of transition with the schools before school starts. Get a chance to get ready for that assignment starting with school starts. And then Jared Pearson, who was selected to be the last process that we held because we knew we were going to have these openings. He will start with us September 6th, and we'll set up a time probably in October to come meet you all during a city council meeting.
It'd be great to meet him. Can you spell his last name, please?
It's Bearson, like Bearson.
Bearson, okay.
Jared comes to us from Multnomah County. He's was a deputy sheriff in Multnomah County for several years and came to the sheriff's office. He's been with us about 2 years, so he brings a lot of experience. And then Aaron Myers, who is currently in our Special Services Division, he was selected in that process as well. He was going to be our fourth deputy, but in effect, he's going to be our third deputy. He'll start around the first of the year, and then we're going to hold another process to select that fourth deputy. And so we'll open that up here in the next month or so and hope to get some good candidates for that. I do have an update on the contract and that it has gone, the amendment's gone to our legal department. And so we should hear something back on that in the next couple of weeks. And then I just wanted to address one other thing that kind of came up about coverage. There was a letter to the editor in the Nugget here in the last week or so about that our office is only open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. That's just our office hours where we have our office assistant there. And that's Joe. He works in our office. So our office over on Larch is open those days, but deputies are on duty 24 hours a day. So I just wanted to clear up that misconception that may be out there. I know it's kind of been brought up because of recent events and topics that are going on, but we do have 24/7 coverage. Today there were 4 or 5 of us running around all day out here, and so we do have coverage. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, sounds good. We probably could boil it down and say right now we have a contract for a lieutenant and 3 deputies, right? I mean, that's what we have, and we're going to a 4th deputy based on the amendments and the negotiations that we're going through. So we have four people assigned to sisters for most of the better part of most every day,
Yes.
if not the whole day. And then there's always the West deputy as well, right?
Right.
A West District deputy.
Yeah.
So that gives us full coverage all the time. So if there's anybody that's worried about, well, we're not covered, we actually are covered, and many times we have multiple people on at the same time.
Yes.
And when an emergency happens, of course, everybody's coming anyway, so, including our partners in Black Butte, State Patrol, and others.
That's correct.
Okay, just want to make sure that everybody here knows what's going on. Does anybody have any, we had stats sent to us last week, I think, so does anybody have any questions for Lieutenant Davis? Gary?
No questions.
Got anything? Okay. Thank you for the update. We appreciate it. And we're looking forward to getting some of that contract stuff ironed out so we can get that thing going for the future.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Next up is Paul and Jackson, I think. Review draft environmental sustainability plan, and I don't want to say that again, but I did want to say, and I know I'm going to take your thunder a little bit, but that's a council goal. And I love seeing the meshing of the work plans and the council goals all come together. And this is one of those important items that, that people are really concerned about, but they may not know how the city is addressing it. So I'm looking forward to hearing your update.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Good evening. Paul Bertagna, Public Works Director, and
Jackson Dumanch, Project Coordinator.
so we got direction from council through their council goals to develop and implement a environmental sustainability plan. And this would be the first one for the City of Sisters. So we started with nothing, and we've got what we feel is a pretty good draft. Tonight, we want to get some feedback from you that we can go back and finalize the draft and then bring it back for final approval. With that, in the council goals, the ESP was to address our city operations, our maintenance and replacement of our facilities and our fleet, and provide support for EV owners and users out there, which will include us at some point. So the plan purpose was to help us, the city, to better adapt to our ever-changing climate conditions and be able to provide a more sustainable future for the community. So that was a driving purpose. Why have a plan? It really puts everything on paper, and it brings together all the aspects of our other planning documents, our water, wastewater, water conservation plans, our wildfire mitigation plan, urban forestry management plan, our brand new comprehensive plan, and really pulls the sustainability portions out of those plans, puts them in one spot where we can look at it, we can develop goals, and then we can then implement on those goals. So Jackson is the author of this plan. I will let him run through the goals and the action items in those, and then we'll take questions.
So the vision for the sustainability plan involves reducing greenhouse gas emissions associated with city operations, working towards an established goal date for achieving carbon neutrality and net zero emissions, as well as keeping in mind and addressing equity concerns, protecting the ecosystems, and creating a better future for next generations. The image shown on that slide shows 2022 CO2 equivalent emissions by categories, and we will dive into those a little more in each focus area. And those focus areas are energy and buildings, transportation, water conservation, waste, wildfire mitigation, and parks, open space, and our urban forest. First focus area, energy and buildings. Goals are to minimize greenhouse gas emissions, improve energy efficiency, and expand renewable energy production in city-owned facilities, as well as promote energy efficiency and renewable energy production on private developments. This focus area is largely broken up into two categories: energy conservation and clean energy transition, and renewable energy, largely revolving around solar infrastructure. The image here, the pie chart, shows general facilities and their energy use for 2022. The largest was City Hall, followed by the Public Works Headquarters, and Recycle Center and East Portal are on there. Overall, use very little energy. Next up, we have transportation. The goals for this one are to improve availability of and access to alternative transportation, improve vehicle efficiency of the city fleet, and promote public electric vehicle use. In this focus area, we're focusing on reducing single occupancy internal combustion vehicle use. And that ties in largely to expanding publicly available EV charging stations and enhancing the multimodal network. Next, we have water conservation. Here our goals are to promote water efficient irrigation and landscaping, minimize water consumption, and maintain a sustainable water supply. This diagram shows that the energy use for our water production and storage facilities and illustrates that conservation can also reduce emissions as pumps have to work less. Then we have the waste category, which is broken up into 3 subsections: solid waste, wastewater, and stormwater. The goals for these are to expand the means by which wastewater disposal can benefit the environment and the community, improve energy efficiency of wastewater facilities, promote stormwater collection via bioswales to facilitate groundwater recharge, reduce consumption of carbon-intensive products and services, and increase waste diversion from landfills. This figure shows that the Sister Sewer Treatment uses the most energy of our wastewater facilities, with the main pump station and the lab facility using a fair portion, but the lift stations you can barely see on that chart. They don't use much energy at all. Wildfire mitigation. For this, the goals are to create and maintain defensible spaces around critical infrastructure, promote mitigation and preparedness efforts through fuels reduction and structure hardening. The 2 images on this slide are seen in the draft plan. The image on the left shows an upward trend of acreage burned from wildfires in Oregon, Washington, and Northern California. And the image on the right shows an increase in the number of days where the air quality index meets or exceeds the category of unhealthy for sensitive groups. And lastly, focus area, parks, open space, and our urban forest. The goals for this focus area are to improve access to green spaces and parks by the community, maintain our urban forest, and reduce the effect of heat islands through green space acquisition, park development, and restoration and protection of White's Creek. And I will turn it back over to Paul.
So the next steps, obviously taking your feedback tonight and then revising our draft, bringing it back for adoption. The implementation plan, we've already started. That was part of the council goal as well. And we have dollars budgeted in the 23-24 fiscal year budget for lighting retrofit projects, for wildfire mitigation projects, as well as water conservation. So we're already rolling with that. And then it's laid out very clearly our 1 to 5 year projects, and then our 5 to 10 on top of that. Funding, state and federal grants are going to be the biggest funding options for us for these projects, especially the larger ones like the East Portable Mobility Hub. With that will come likely some cost sharing or for us to put dollars in as a grant match as well. So, and that will likely come from, you know, the individual funds that'll be affected with the projects. Equity, this was important for us to have in the plan because we really want to think of the whole community as a whole. This is for everyone. Make sure no one's left out, make sure it's working for everyone. And that'll be part of what we do with our progress reporting is checking in, making sure that we're being equitable out there. And the progress reporting itself, we're thinking, you know, obviously our oversight committees, the Public Works Advisory Board, Urban Forestry Board, potentially the Planning Commission, and of course you all to do pretty routine progress reporting, you know, whether it's annually or biannually. We'd like feedback on that as well. So with that, we're happy to try to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. I'm just going to lead off on a comment, and I'm just going to say that I'm super impressed with the draft, Jackson. Thank you. I mean, it's for a first time, you know, document kind of from scratch. and there's not a lot to compare it to in other places. I know that other cities have it, but, you know, we're still sisters. We have different needs and different requirements, and I think that this is a really, really good start. As far as the details go, I'm admittedly not as much of a detail guy as other people on council, so I'll let them look at it and give you some stuff, and then I'll summarize at the end and maybe add a few things.
And you might point out that what was presented is just the highlights of the plan.
Right.
The plan is significantly larger
Larger,
and in
right.
much greater detail than what was presented here tonight.
Yeah, it's way thicker and it's got more detail in it. This is a presentation, of course. So, but I did want to say that. Is there anybody that wants to start off? Gary, you're online there. Do you want to drive?
I really don't have too much to say at this point. Given bandwidth issues, I have scanned the plan and like what I see. I think there's still some fleshing out to do, and I would like to have the opportunity when I get back in town next week to send some comments to Paul once I've had a chance to print it out on a sheet of paper and read it. It's hard to read it on an iPad, so but I like what I see, and I think that we're heading in the right direction, especially when we start looking at greenhouse gas emissions. And I was happy to see that in there. And I have the ultimate faith that we have the right players sitting at the table in front of you.
Sounds good. Susan?
I want to echo the comments about the document being so thorough and truly appreciate how easy to read it was. I provided my comments and stuff to you, but I did have one question, and that was on page 5 of the document, and it had to do with this statement: carbon neutrality by 20 blank blank and net zero GHGs by 20 blank blank. And what I wondered is, how are those years going to be determined? Is that something that you need from council to decide, or how is that going to, how are we going to decide? Is it 2030? Is it 2035?
I suppose a good place to start would be looking at what the United Nations had set
Okay,
and looking at our own operations and progress, and for the council to make a informed decision from there.
thank you.
Okay. Anything else, or?
No, that.
All right,
that
go
was-
ahead.
Thank you for taking this on and all your hard work. I'm really excited about it. The point of having a plan is so you have a plan. So you can move forward, and you can also gauge your progress and circle back and see if things are working and fix what's not working. So plans are important that way, but plans are really important these days because there are a lot of dollars out there at the state and federal level for a lot of these projects that if we do not have a plan, like anything else, we can't get access to those dollars. So this is going to help us get some free money, which I always like. I just would suggest that we pepper the report a little bit more with kind of a reminder of that a lot of these actions can be good for the community and good for the environment and et cetera, but a lot of these actions are also good for the pocketbook and for our budget as well. That's the sustainability work that I practice. It's money is incredibly important, and it's just the more we can show that good planning equals saved dollars. Sometimes you have to spend a little bit more money in the beginning, but save things over long term. So I just think that it would be helpful for not only us, but the public, just to see that reminder of this is a really smart use of tax dollars. Thanks.
Okay. No details on guidance on.
Oh,
Any particular issue?
they got lots
We
of notes
already-
from me already.
Okay, good.
They
All
were
right.
the ones
And they
who
integrated a
already
lot of
reviewed
them.
it, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they integrated a lot. so
No,
looks
I
good.
appreciate it. It's good for me to know that way. I don't, you guys are checking in with it. That's great. Go ahead.
I probably sound like a broken record every time I speak about this, but I encourage that we step up the programs in the community to help those in the community who have older homes or are handicapped or elderly, or for one reason or another are not really able to keep up their property in a safe fashion. I live on the south end of town, and there are a number of homeowners that are in that position in that area. I know over the years, several times we've talked with the fire department, and they've indicated that they have folks that volunteer that could be part of a program to go community-wide to areas especially that don't have homeowners associations, because the programs that are out there already kind of hit those, the wildfire, can't remember the name of the program that goes around, anyway.
Fire safe, is that?
Fire safe and whatever, but in the areas where we don't have homeowners associations and they don't have local organizations, they in many cases are the neediest and need the most help and have access to the least amount of information and resources. And I would just love to see us work with the fire department to, so that it isn't just a city coming down and demanding that the community do certain things on their property, but firefighters are held in much higher regard than most anybody else in the community. And I think that coming from them, the message would be much more important. And I'm sure that we have community organizations like Boy Scouts and Heart of Oregon Corps and any number of groups that could work with volunteering to help fix up these programs, through some of the grant funding that you're talking about. Hopefully there's some for that. And that we started as like tomorrow, because putting, it's been put off. I've been here for, 8 or 9 years, and we were talking about it back then, we're talking about it again. And I just see them as being very, very vulnerable. And as soon as we can get on that, the better. Not that there's anything wrong with what's in here. I just want to say how important that is, I think, to our community. Because if something starts there and gets going fast, it takes everybody else out as well. So I think it's real important. Thank you. But everything, it was great.
And I think to add to that, there's also the opportunity in that equity side of it for the city to be kind of maybe not so much a leader, but a conduit for other programs that offer, HVAC replacement for low-income individuals and stuff like that, because there's more and more of those happening as well. So.
Yeah, Neighbor Impact's having a meeting here in the community soon, and I'm sure that they've got programs.
Tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to piggyback on both of those things. I really thank you for bringing up the equity question. One of these things that we can do with programs like this is piggyback in other areas. Obviously, the wildfire mitigation and, resiliency of buildings, and having the equity issue with that makes a conduit, like you said, for other programs that are similar to the same crowd. And once we kind of get that going, I think that's going to be really good. And to piggyback on exactly what you said is, I think that without creating a lot of extra work, I think that we can sit here on the city council, and that includes Gary, that I think that we would be possibly interested in taking it up one little notch and say, hey, let's maybe not the leader in the whole state, but say, hey, the Sisters way is to, hey, let's figure out a way to solve a couple of these smaller problems, such as the hardening of homes and stuff like that. I don't know how we add that to this plan without starting over or anything, but I think that we are always interested in up here is to be on the aggressive side of things, less than the meek side of things. We always want to hear ways where we can maybe take that one extra step somewhere. And that might be an area, the equity issue might be an area, maybe they're both an area.
Yeah, It's like
right?
a proactive approach.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about the Sisters Way a lot, and some things are something that we can kind of dogpile on a little bit. Everybody around here knows about fires coming through. Our town is filled with smoke every year now, the last 3 or 4 years. It's, some of it's just people burning things, and that's not great, but the fact is, we still have to deal with that as well. And so, if you come up with a couple of little items like, and it takes it from level 8 to level 9, it might be something that we could definitely be interested in. And that kind of goes for everything, but definitely this plan as well, especially for me on the wildfire mitigation and defensible space and structural hardening. I love how this plan points right at that goal, which is a different goal, but it's together. And so we're hitting two goals at once simultaneously, which nobody can argue with. I mean, this is stuff that we need to be doing as the leaders of this community, is making sure that everything works, not just tomorrow, but 10 years from now and 20 years from now. And Paul, I know you're all over that, so I'm not telling you anything you don't know. We appreciate what you're doing. The other thing I wanted to talk about was our curtailment plan. I wanted to ask a question about that. And this is probably a question I probably should ask you before the meeting, but I'm just going to ask it. Is this table 3 that you have, is that something that's already been in place and we're continuing finding it, or is this something new?
It's already in place. It's in our water conservation plan.
Okay.
And it really is the groundwork that has been approved by the state for our city manager to be able to make those hard decisions if we run into an issue with bumping up against our production capacity.
Right.
So talks a lot about 80%, 90% of our production capacity. This year, our biggest water day, we were a little less than 40% of our production capacity. So we're not even close to it, but we want to have this in place in case we have to make that emergency decision.
Fantastic. I remember a few years ago, we got up in the 60% range. That might have been 2020 when it was hotter.
Prior to well 4 as well.
Prior to the extra well as well, yeah. So that sounds great. I really think that, we've had some discussions in the past and letters to the editor and the Nugget about our water. And I think that, again, on our hottest day this year, I'll just repeat what Paul just said. Our hottest, our biggest usage day, we only used 40% of our capacity. That's fantastic. I mean, that's somewhat, I don't know, unheard of. There are other cities that are struggling and they're at 80% or 100% of their water all the time during this drought. And so we've always tried, and I know Paul has a long history of being in his position. He's been there 20 years. He's kept ahead of the game for us. Our city is in a good spot. It's not perfect. We're still going to conserve water and continue to find other ways to do that. But I'd like to reiterate that our water system is in pretty good shape compared to most people, if not right up there at the top. So thanks, Paul. I appreciate that. Go ahead, Gary, you got something?
Just a comment. Kind of, I think that both Andrea and excuse me, I got something stuck here, and Jennifer raised a valid point. I think that when we look at these sorts of plans, we don't really think about lowering costs, because that's exactly what will happen when those meter counts go down. And when we look at some of our less, as Andrea mentioned, some of our homeowners and stuff, maybe who are elderly, who have older systems, anything that we can do to improve the efficiency of the systems they have in their home also contributes towards meeting this goal. So I'm in favor of being as aggressive as we can with the different agencies that provide support funding and helping connect those dots for some of our folks in the community that maybe don't have the ability even to know that those dots are there to connect. Thanks.
Thanks, Gary. Anybody else have anything? I'd like to sum it up in a mayorly way, like I do sometimes. And that is, and it's kind of corny, but our town is a quilt of all kinds of different people and different structures. We have you'll have a $2 million home sitting next to a manufactured home sitting next to an Adair home next to another custom home next to duplexes and triplexes. And they all have kind of different hardening needs, and we just need to find a way to help out the people that need it the most. And it doesn't matter what their structure is, other than getting to the goal of making it more hardened for fires. Fire is one of the scariest things for me personally as a mayor, because and I've said this before and I'll say it again, I don't want to be the guy on TV saying, what happened? Why is 80% of the town gone? We've seen it in Maui, we've seen it in Paradise. That's just 2 times in the last 4 years. It can happen to us, so let's, like Gary said, be as aggressive as we can on that particular issue. Because I just think it's the one that can just wipe us out, and we obviously don't want that, and we want to make sure that we can do everything we can to avoid it. So that's it. I'll get off my little soapbox. What's the next step then, Paul?
We got some good feedback tonight.
Okay.
Jackson and I will go over it tomorrow, and we'll start working on revising the draft, beefing up the mitigation and equity portions of the plan, and then we'll bring it back to you all for approval.
Okay, what's the goal to get this through and completed for us to finalize it in
September.
Yeah. Okay.
Be able to hit that.
Okay.
Might be speaking out of turn with the agenda, but
We keep messing with it.
Yeah.
we'll try for that.
Jordan, do you have anything to add to that, or?
No, thanks to staff. I mean, this was actually pretty fun to walk in and see that so much work had already been done, and we had councilor involvement on the draft and input, and something to be proud about.
It was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
To open it up and read something that was special, what a surprise that is so well done and prepared, and that we're this far, and something to, a success.
The author did a great job, and yeah, with your help, it'll be even better.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackson, again. All right. We'll be looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, Dark Skies Lighting Development Code, Director Woodford. Hi, Scott.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. What's that? Oh,
It's a little.
I'm a soft talker, I guess.
It's a little.
Well, hopefully I'm half as successful as the sustainability plan with the dark skies lighting.
We'll let you know.
Yeah, it's a hard act to follow there.
That's right.
So for the public, Scott Woodford, Community Development Director for the City of Sisters, the purpose for tonight's discussion is to review a text amendment to the Sisters Development Code for our outdoor lighting ordinance, commonly known as the Dark Skies Lighting Ordinance. So this is a work session to discuss potential changes to the ordinance. So it's been a while since we've had this discussion with it. We went through a series of work sessions back in 2022, and both with the council and the planning commission, and then got put on the back burner because we had some other pressing items that we had to address first. So, but the fact that it is still a priority with both the council and the community and the staff, we wanted to make sure that that progress that we had made wasn't lost. So we think we have a little window that we can kind of sneak this through right now. So we're gonna try our best. And I just appreciate the community's patience as well as we work through this, because they've spent a lot of time here providing comment as well. So just wanted to spend a little time with you today, just get back up to speed. Number one, this is going to be the first of 2 work sessions I plan to have with the council on this. Also have 2 work sessions with the planning commission, in addition to public hearings on both items. It's a complicated issue because it's very technical, and it involves every person in this community. Lighting touches every person, so it's a very important issue, and we want to make sure we get it right. Want to make sure that it's meets modern technological changes that have occurred lately, that it's easy to administer for the city, and then it's easy to implement for the community. Also want to talk about some of the guiding principles of the proposed draft ordinance. It wasn't my intent tonight to go into great detail on the ordinance. Some of you have provided some comments, some detailed comments, which I appreciate, but I have a feeling it's going to change a little bit. So I don't want you guys to get too deep into the details. Trying to get your feedback from some of the higher level threshold items, so that you can give us direction on how to come back with specific responses to those. So I'm going to review those key issues when I get a chance here in a few minutes. I also want to introduce a consultant that we brought on board to help us with this process. His name is John Barentine. He's on the screen right there. Hi, John. He's with Dark Sky Consulting LLC. It's one of the few consulting firms out there that actually specializes in this kind of thing. And John is got a PhD in astronomy, so we've got the authority on the skies here. But I felt it would be helpful for all of us to help have him help us with some of these issues that we're kind of struggling with, to make sure that it's user-friendly and that it implements the best practices of all the communities that he works with and he's familiar with, because we don't want to recreate the wheel here. We want to make sure we're doing something that is workable for other communities. And I felt like his knowledge could help us out with this process. So I'll give him an opportunity here in a bit to introduce himself a little bit. And he's here as a resource. So if you have any questions about what are other communities doing, what's been their experience of trying to bring non-conforming lighting into conformance, how are other communities dealing with string lighting, what other communities are doing with the public lighting, he's a great resource, and I'm happy to have him on board. And then at the end, we'll discuss next steps in the process. So just to reiterate, why are we changing the ordinance? Or why are we updating it? I think the most fundamental support for the update is the comprehensive plan. I want to just read a excerpt from the comprehensive plan. We always like to touch back to the comprehensive plan whenever we can, because we spend so much time on this document. It's a guiding document. It's important, and when we can touch back to it and bring it forward to current projects, it's always a good thing. So it says, one policy in the comprehensive plan says the city shall enhance its dark skies program to prevent light pollution and protect night sky views, both through regulation of new development and through incentivizing retrofitting of existing non-conforming lighting. I did a search for lighting in the comprehensive plan. It's brought up 12 times. So that tells you that it's an important value in the community. As I mentioned, it's also important to update our lighting ordinance to account for all the changes, technological changes that have occurred since it was last adopted in 2010. There's a lot of terminology that's in our existing ordinance that really isn't even used much anymore, and new terms that are being used that we need to incorporate. There's a lot of community support that we've heard for improving the dark skies. I think everybody I've talked to, there's nobody that I've talked to who does not support the concept of being able to see the stars at night. I think it's a shared value throughout the community. Granted, the devil's in the details in terms of how we do that, but there's broad community support for that. And then finally, and maybe most importantly to you, it is a city council goal for this year. So lots of reasons to bring this forward. As I mentioned, I didn't want to get too much into the weeds on the lighting ordinance itself. If you have comments on it, please forward it. But just to reiterate some of the guiding principles of the ordinance, one, that the lighting be useful, that it only is used if needed, shall have a clear purpose, and it shall also consider the effects that lighting will have on neighbors and wildlife. That the lighting is targeted, the fixtures should be directed downward and be shielded so light falls only where it is needed. That lights only are no brighter than necessary to accomplish the purpose. Controls such as timers or motion detectors are encouraged to ensure that light is available when it is needed, dimmed when possible, and turned off when not needed. And then the color, using warmer color lights where possible, makes a big difference in lighting. In terms of getting feedback on the ordinance, as I mentioned, it's a concept that, or it's an issue that touches just about everybody in the community. So we've worked kind of hard to get feedback from as many different groups as possible. We talked to architects because they implement lighting and new development. We talked to the school district facility manager because there's a element in here that relates to athletic fields. We talked to electrical engineers, we talked to our code enforcement officer because they're going to be responsible for actually enforcing this. Public works staff, a lot of lighting that they oversee, as you just heard. Got some legal review, and we've also most recently been reaching out to the business owners, to a cross section of business owners to get their feedback on the ordinance. That was the direction from the Planning Commission. We've received input from the astronomy club at the high school. There's a really well-engaged group of students and teachers out there that support the dark skies. I've got a lot of community member letters, and then the aforementioned dark sky consulting group. So there's a lot of eyes on this ordinance, including council and planning commission. So what's been some of the feedback that we've received so far from these work sessions from planning commission and council? Or some of the issues that have kind of come to the fore. There's the issue of the exemption of public lights. The ordinance as drafted says all city facilities, non-right-of-way, non-street lighting shall be in conformance with the dark sky lighting, but there is an exemption for street lighting out there. Under the understanding or coming from the standpoint that traffic is also very important, and maybe traffic traffic does probably trump nighttime viewing of the dark skies element. So that has been something that's brought up by some of the public as something they don't want to see occur. They don't want to see the city have an exemption for that. They're saying if the private folks have to meet all the elements of the ordinance, that the public has to as well. Counter to that is that these lights there's many lights out there in the community. Traffic is very important. The cost to retrofit these lights in some cases could be very expensive. So it's something that we still need to kind of work out whether that exemption remains in the code or not. We've had a lot of discussion about string lights. Those are those lights on strings that you see all over in people's backyards, and you see them in a lot of restaurants, outdoor seating areas. That everybody loves them for the ambience that they create, but they also potentially have some issues related to light pollution. We heard from John last time that because the Planning Commission asked about that, and relative to the overall contribution to light pollution, string lights are actually it's a pretty minor issue. It can create major issues to your immediate neighbor. So it does have impacts there. But if you're looking at just purely light pollution point of view, it's a relatively small contributor. However, there's been some support for curfews potentially. When you don't need to have them lights on all night. Maybe they just need to be on when they're needed. Some folks think that they should be banned outright. So there's still a lot of thoughts on string lights. And then the other one that I've found to be kind of a continuing item here is the time frame for what to do about non-complying lights. If you recall, in the 2010 ordinance, there was a date in there that said within 5 years of the adoption of the ordinance, all the non-conforming lights out in the community needed to be brought into conformance. And we know that didn't occur. It didn't happen. I'm not sure what effort was put forth there, but it didn't occur. So there's been talk about resetting that time frame. Is it 5 years again? Is it 10 years? Is it 2 years? There's a lot of factors or a lot of considerations when you think about that. And then during some research in some other communities, I was kind of curious to see what they used as a time frame. And I looked at Flagstaff, Arizona, which is kind of generally, they were one of the first dark sky certified communities. So they've been doing that. They've been at it for a long time. They don't have a time frame in their ordinance. What they use is a provision that says all non-conforming lights are allowed to continue on until they need to be replaced. And at that time of replacement, that is when they're required to be brought into conformance. So love to hear John's feedback on that issue. There was widespread support from council at that time and support by Planning Commission for financial assistance to homeowners to help implement this. Again, what was the business reaction? I'll get into that in a second. And then there was direction from at least council to make sure that the dark sky advocates were involved in the process. So just reviewing public comment, as I mentioned, public lighting, they don't, the kind of the consensus of the public comment was that the exemption should not apply to street lights, that there was some concern about the safety of the Cascade Avenue street lights. And then some folks have put forth that there's new technology in lighting that would allow public street lighting to both accomplish the goals of safety and dark sky lighting. String lights, I'd mentioned that there was public comment. A lot of the comment was to ban them outright, or to at least make sure that they're shielded. The lights are shielded, that they're not just spreading light into the sky. A big emphasis on education to make sure before enforcement, to help educate the community on the importance of why lighting is an important thing to take care. And non-conforming lighting, it's not like there was a consensus that they wanted like a 1 to 5 year time frame to get the non-conforming lighting going. And then there was some support for dark sky certification. There's an International Dark Sky Association, and there's an ability to have communities be certified if they meet certain requirements. It's often associated with astrotourism. It's something that's marketed in different areas of the country. I know that some Eastern Oregon, they're trying to get a dark sky region certification established so that they can use that in their tourism. And those people that come to the community spend a lot of money, so they're trying to take advantage of that. And I think that's one of the darkest areas of the country. The lower 48 still left, so they know what they got down there. Business owner feedback, just a summary of that. Everybody I talked to, I instead of just sending out kind of a mass email to business owners, I'm kind of picking a cross section of different types of business owners to get their thoughts. And every one of them so far said they wholeheartedly support the concept of the dark skies. There's nobody that lives in Sisters that doesn't like to look at the skies. But at the same time, they want the regulations to work for their operations and be cost effective. There's still a need to provide safety for their employees and guests at night. There's a lodging operator that talked about that their guests check in at all times of the night. So there's a need to have lighted safety for them. They oftentimes get people from out of state, city slickers, if you will, that are scared of what might be outside of lighted areas. So they want to be able to walk back and forth to things in a well-lit environment. The need for signage to be lit all night for those types of uses. Found a lot of support for financial incentives to replace lighting. Several of them mentioned that they would be happy to be like a showcase for bringing non-conforming lighting into conformance that we could tout to other business owners. And then I sense a support for a phase out over time versus strict timeline for bringing non-conforming lighting into conformance. Education first before enforcement. String lights, a couple of them mentioned they provide good ambience. They think regulating them goes too far. But they would support a curfew on those. So I'll finish up with next steps. Like I mentioned, there's a plan to be a second Planning Commission work session on September 7th, a second council work session on September 27th, a public hearing with the Planning Commission on October 19th, and then hopefully council public hearing in November. But as we know, these agendas are fairly fluid right now. So that's the end of my presentation. I wanted to be able to utilize this opportunity for questions from council. And I also wanted to see if John wanted to make any comments. I did have John look at the the draft ordinance that was in the packet, and he brought up a host of really great questions and observations that we haven't had a chance to really kind of go through. That's what we plan to have for the next work session. Love to have you guys ask him questions that you might like to know about his
Okay.
perspective. Please
Sounds good.
utilize that.
Yeah. Hi, John. Why don't you speak so we know your mic's working?
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, sounds great. I'm gonna fire off the first one. I was gonna start with a joke, but I'll pass it. I'll pass on that and do that later. I've talked about this before. This is my 5th year on council. We've talked about it a lot over the last 5 years. And one of the things that I was really interested in is the dark skies certification for cities and communities. My question to you is, you're the expert kind of guy, no offense to Scott again. How close are we to kind of going that direction, or are we not really that close and we should just concentrate on what works best for the city of Sisters?
Well, the short answer to that is I think you're pointed in the right direction. If it's something that the city would consider down the road, it's a bit more than just the ordinance. It requires a demonstration of community commitment. You would have to retrofit any publicly owned lighting that is not in compliance with your code. The code would need to have a couple of more things added to it that it doesn't have right now. It has much of what Dark Sky International requires for the Dark Sky community designation. The draft update does, if that all gets done. We could put in the additional items if that potentially interests you. And you put all that together and make a written application to the organization, and then they make a decision on that basis. So not everything is there in place, but I could see a scenario in which you could do it. And as was mentioned, this fits in with other initiatives in the area, some of which have already gotten done, like the Prineville Reservoir Dark Sky Park designation, and the bigger project involving the Oregon Outback in the southeastern counties. So lots happening in Oregon. I think Sisters would fit really well into that overall plan as a dark sky community, and we can certainly talk about the particulars at some point.
Okay, thank you, John. And what I'll say to my fellow counselors is, if that's something you're interested in, say yes, not this second. But if there's enough of us that want that, then we should at least give them the go-ahead to figure out what the pieces that are missing, and maybe costs, and figure out all that kind of stuff. I don't think we'll provide direction to you tonight on that, but I think that as we go through this process, I'd like my fellow counselors to think about that. And if there's enough interest in it, at least go down that path to find out how much effort that takes, and if it's hugely different than what we're doing, and maybe we do it, maybe we don't. I just think it would be kind of of all the dark, like I said, all the dark skies talk that we've talked about for me 5 years, and I know you've talked about it longer. It's an interesting concept to be a special place for astrotourism. That's kind of a funny term, I think, but I totally understand what it's for. And like Scott said, there's nobody against seeing the stars. So if it's something that, if we're at 80% and it only takes 20%, or if we're at 90 and it takes 10, that might be something worth doing. If we're only at 60% and we need 40, maybe it's too far, or maybe this is a step down that road and we do it another time. And I just wanted to bring that up so everybody kind of has it on their mind, and we can figure out the answer to that later. Sound good? Everybody's in on that? All right. I have lots of questions, but I'd like you guys to have an opportunity to have questions as well. So go ahead. You're up.
Okay. Yeah, just a couple questions. What kind of data is typically used to find problem areas? I mean, I know we can say relatively definitively, this type of light fixture has this much light pollution and et cetera. But I mean, are we using also like satellite imagery or drones or anything to kind of hone in on that?
John, do you want to address that question about, where typically, I think the question, Councilor Letts, is where the worst offenders are, or what the area of highest priority is, or?
Yeah, everything seems to be, what we can do at ground level, but the ultimate test is, what is going up and yeah, I'm just wondering, is that like a metric that is used? Is there some sort of aerial
He's nodding his head.
imaging and stuff like
Yeah,
that?
John, if you want to address that, that would be great.
Yes, Counselor, absolutely. We are fortunate that there is available through federally funded Earth observatory programs. There is a satellite that maps the entire Earth every night. It flies over your house at about 1:30 in the morning. Don't worry, they can't see what you're doing. They can resolve an area that's about the size of a city block, roughly a bit more than 500 meters on a side. And we get that picture every night. And then they assemble the images from different periods of time and screen out the ones where there's clouds overhead and that sort of thing. So we get these monthly composites and then annual composites. So we can look down to the block level with this publicly available data and find the areas where there is an unusual amount of light emission, and that would give us a clue as to where to start. Some people are experimenting with sources like aerial images with aircraft or drones, but the real on the ground truth is to do lighting audits or inventories, which are a kind of a pencil and clipboard kind of effort that you walk around, and you don't have to go onto property to be able to do it because a lot of it is visible from the street. Just to figure out what are the issues. Do you have a lot of unshielded lighting? Do you have lighting that is, in many cases, it can be vastly brighter than is really needed for the application? And then you can put together sort of your priority list of where you target the remediation and frankly the education. Since there was some discussion about enforcement and timescales for amortizing the lighting that's out there that's not compliant. I think you're going to get the best results if you put education first, but you also need to know where to focus your efforts. And we have several different ways of attacking that problem.
Okay, thank you. Second question is, Long Cascade, which is an ODOT highway. Is there any ODOT requirements, or all the lighting, is that city lighting and that's our decision? Or any of the state highways? Yeah, does ODOT have any rules that might trump anything that we
I might
create?
defer to Paul on that one. I know enough to be dangerous on that topic. Paul and I are planning on meeting to talk more about the public lighting, so we would have more information when we came back, unless, Paul, you want to address that right quickly or not?
You need Paul to answer that now, or is that, can that be a question that gets answered a little later?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
And then just another question for our guest is that there's obviously funding is a big issue of retrofits. So have you seen any creative or good sources of funding? We have in our community, we have a user co-op for our electricity, and which is part of Bonneville Power Administration. And the downside of that is their level of incentives available for such things as lighting retrofits is not as robust as many other places in Oregon. So I know that would be where I would start, but are there any other programs out there that you know of?
Well, if we were having this discussion about 10 years ago, there was a time when the US Department of Energy was funding a lot of lighting retrofits as part of the recovery from the Great Recession. But all of that money has pretty much dried up at this point. So the federal government isn't necessarily a good source for that. I have seen people do some interesting and creative work socially at the local level to raise private funds to help with some retrofits. We have a great example in a pair of towns in Colorado called West Cliff and Silver Cliff that became a dark sky community several years ago. And long before that, they had a very active citizens group that went around and raised money privately to pay for retrofits. And over 20 years, they raised over $100,000 for that purpose. They had a lot of support in the community. They're smaller towns than Sisters, so it may not be the type of thing that can be easily ported over there. But that notion that you might have resources in your local community that you don't even know about yet that can help with this is certainly something that's worth looking into.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Susan?
Yes, I have a similar question to Councillor Letts, but I'm directing it to the astro expert. How have other cities handled if they have a highway from ODOT running through their town? How have they handled that?
That's a good question. And in most cases, your State Department of Transportation has complete authority over that lighting. The municipality really doesn't have much of an influence unless they are able to convince the State Department of Transportation to make certain changes voluntarily. But if they have guidelines, they publish them at the state level and they apply them pretty uniformly across the state. If you have contacts with ODOT, it's worth talking about, first of all, whether they have statewide guidance for their state highways and routes for lighting, and find out what that is. I haven't encountered that myself, so I'm not able to answer that question in particular. What often comes up in dealings between municipalities and state governments where lighting on state highways is concerned is much of it has to do with glare and what we would call light trespass. So that's light that's on that state highway that's meant to light up the road, but it's falling into properties that are beyond the boundaries of the highway, and it might be causing problems. That's a case where oftentimes the state will work with the municipality if they need to add shielding or something like that. They tend to want to be good neighbors, but that doesn't always work out that way. I don't think you can count on that necessarily. But I think the place to start is if you have any sort of pre-existing relationship with ODOT in general, is to use that to bring up the subject of what the state policies are for their highways.
Okay, and I do have one more question. So you mentioned that we have this view monthly and annually of, across the United States and elsewhere, I imagine. Do you have any kind of idea of what Sisters Register, light register is right now? Last month or last year?
There is an interesting web tool that makes this pretty easy to do. You basically go into one of these maps and you draw a boundary. And what it does is it pulls up the monthly values for the total light emission inside whatever that shape is that you draw. And I think at some point during the discussion about the ordinance draft, I pulled that up and looked at it with respect to the rate that your population has been changing. We have those monthly measurements going back to 2012, so a bit over 10 years. And you have to do some interpolation with the census values. But my recollection was that your light emissions are growing a little bit faster than your population, which is not uncommon in the United States. It is often the case that it exceeds population growth, and it has to do with the rate at which your land development is taking place. We saw a lot of changes over the last decade because of the arrival of LED lighting in particular, which if it's not well designed and implemented can make your light pollution issues worse. But if it's done really well, it can make things better. So that's sort of the starting point, is we can look at that again and use that as a baseline for what's been happening in recent years. And we expect that we'll have access to these satellite facilities for probably at least the next 10 or 20 years. So we'll be able to follow that in time as well.
Thank you so very much.
I assume that that's part of what we're going through, is to maybe use those metrics going forward. Is that
Well, we hadn't planned, we hadn't planned on getting that technical.
Okay.
But it's
Today.
certainly an interesting tool to
Yeah.
kind of
I mean,
maybe measure progress over time, but
Yeah, I definitely love to, get some more information just to do, a little homework myself. Thank you, Susan, for your questions. Counselor Ross, Gary?
Yeah, actually, a couple got answered. I had light trespass written down on my sheet here. And I know when we talk about the string light issue, that's probably the biggest problem with the string lights, especially the sort of Edison bulb style ones that you see all over town, is there's quite a bit of light trespass that goes on with those, more so than material being shut up into the sky. And so there's something when we build this plan, I think we're gonna have to talk a little bit about. Sorry for the side view of the head, but I have to read my notes here. And you mentioned a web tool, John, that is available. So if that could be provided, the URL for that and how to utilize that to Scott or someone so it could be passed on to council, I think that would be interesting. And I'm not surprised that our light emission growth is expanding faster than our population. Given the population estimates that we're getting from the state, I think it's important for us to try to get ahead of this rather than try to play catch up. And so that's another question. And then to council, I think that one of the things when we move forward, and I know I'm not getting into the weeds, when we move forward with this plan, one of our strategies is going to have to be helping those entities that can't afford to retrofit. That may be some level of funding that we secure through other agencies, or we even have to come up with some dollars ourselves. So I'm pleased with what I'm hearing tonight. Like your backdrop there, John. I can see our little dark spot that's Southern Oregon, but I don't want to be a big glow on this right there. And Bend is already having this problem, so it'd be awful nice if we don't contribute to it.
All right, thanks, Gary. Andrea?
I can ask my questions off without the meeting. I think we need to move on.
Right, we can certainly do that. How much time do we need, Gary, for?
That's dependent on you.
Yeah,
All right.
it usually takes us an hour or two.
Yeah, I have a few things. The mayor has about 8 string lights outside of his house. That's me. And
What?
I do.
I've seen them.
You've seen them, but I shut them off at night, and they're on a timer in the summer, especially because it turns dark at 4 p.m. and you don't want them on all night. So I'm really not for a banning of string lights, but that's just me. Yeah, we're going to have discussions about conformance and all that. It doesn't have to be covered today. Absolutely, Gary is right. We have equity issues again. We have reasons to think about financial assistance and providing lights. And, that's a whole nother subject that we don't have to talk about tonight, but everybody's thinking about it. So we might as well remember that. And the biggest, I guess the biggest thing is trying to balance, especially our downtown core with safety issues and business owners is a huge conversation that, that's going to have to be refined and boiled down to after even more conversations, I think. I think that most of us might be, I think myself, having the city have an exemption from their lights is probably not something that I would really be super supportive of. I like to think that we as a city should mostly, as much as we can, follow the same rules that everybody else does. So that's just me talking, but again, that's another conversation we'll definitely have. I think we're off to a flying start. Does anybody have any more questions for John, our guest? Okay, thank you, John. We appreciate it. Is there any more you need from us right now, or do you think you have enough to move forward?
no, this fulfilled the purpose of the work session, I think, is just to reacquaint ourselves with the issue, get John's feedback, get your thoughts, and be able to ask some questions. So that'll help us get to the next step, and you'll get another opportunity, like I said, at a work session level with more detail.
Excellent.
If you do have any more comments, Councilor Cobb has given me some detailed comments. So if you have any comments, specific ones you want to share offline, and technical ones or more fine grain ones, then please don't hesitate to do that.
Right, and again, I might want to reiterate the whole certified, the certified angle of it. Let's just make sure we at least explore the idea if we're even interested. If we're not, that's okay. It could be a goal, at the next check-in of dark skies after we create this, creating this ordinance. So,
Yep.
thank you, appreciate it. All right. Next item is the community grant award discussion.
I think we should just take my figures and,
And just use it.
yeah.
So I guess the question is, do you guys think we can get it done in 10 or 15 minutes? Or should we, it's up to, I don't have a good feel for it, so.
So I know that last year, we were able to get it done relatively quickly. Please note that during the budget meetings, you did ask that we relook at this in our work plan, and we do have that on the work plan for the city manager's office. So any potential changes to the policy or how it is laid out, we will approach later this year, maybe into early winter. So that's just one of those pieces. I think we can do it.
Yeah, okay. And one of the reasons that Carrie brought this up, I don't know if you guys remember at the budget meeting, but I was kind of thinking that if we could either tie it as a percentage to the budget to make it a lot easier, so the amount flexes with the budget. I also think that we, in many ways, could be a little more giving in more than 20,000. But again, I'm not the one that decides that. We all decide that. So that conversation is something we're going to have later. We're working with a $20,000 budget. Everybody, all 5 counselors gave their input on that. And is it time to go down the list?
Let me start just for the audience, so people have not probably been a part of this
Sure.
process, just a little bit of background.
Okay.
So the City of Sisters budgeted $20,000 for community grants to be used by nonprofits and other entities that provide projects or programs in the Sisters area. Grant applications were accepted between July 1st and 30th, and this year $66,603 in funding was requested from 22 organizations. Grants are awarded for the purpose of meeting essential needs, educational enrichment, recreational opportunities, and other miscellaneous community needs. And over the past 2 decades, the city has awarded over $304,000 in grants to 61 local organizations with an average grant award of $1,400. So council evaluated 22 applications that came in. And Joe, if you want to pull up that spreadsheet, Joe is going to do the spreadsheet magic for us. And what happened with this, and it's kind of a behind the scenes process, is if funds weren't allocated to a grant by at least 3 counselors, they were dropped off because that meant to some degree that 3 people weren't in favor of giving grants. So in this case, there were 3 grants that were dropped off. Ponderosa Cascade HOA, the Kiwanis grant, and the Sisters Community Garden grant were all dropped. I just wanted to put that out there in case at some point you wanted to discuss those and potentially bring something back in.
What was that?
Can you say them slower, please?
Sorry, Ponderosa Cascade HOA,
Okay, thank you.
the Kiwanis, and the Sisters Community Garden.
Okay.
And there was one late grant. The Sisters Rodeo Association came in with their grant application on August 17th, and in the past, counselors have not allowed late grants to come into the group, and it was the same this year, so that grant was not considered, that grant request in this process. So what we have on the screen is in that what says the final allocation, but that is the tentative allocation that counselors we came up with. So if whatever you allocated is divided by 5, and that's how we come up with that average. So of the 20,000, 19,140 has currently been allocated, with $860 left that can be put however you'd like to move that forward. And that's, if you'd like to discuss that and consider anything else, we can do that right now.
I'll have to see what you guys lowballed that I care about. Okay, let's see.
I'm just going to say right now, as a veteran, thank you for supporting the flag replacement. That's something that volunteers do in the veteran community. And all they're doing is just trying to replace the flags that are a little bit tattered. So thank you for that. As a veteran, I really appreciate that. We haven't funded it fully. It's 900 and 820. I think the veterans can come up with the rest if you decide not to add the extra $80.
Actually, it's a little bit more than they asked for.
Is it?
Yeah, they asked for 900.
Yeah, they asked for 900, it says 8.
Oh, I thought it said 920. I'm
No.
sorry.
But that's okay. I just want to say thank you as a veteran because I just think that that's a special part of our town that the Stars and Stripes go up on the road 4 or 5 times a year.
Well, I would agree with the mayor in that I would suggest that we go ahead and give them that full 900. And then on the age-friendly sisters, the STARS drivers, a part of what they're asking for is to, reimburse the gas costs. And I think that's another one that we should, my feeling, that's my vote. Maybe just take that up and take care of that amount, because they asked for 5,000 and we're giving them 2,720. So that's another place, I think, personally, that we could put extra money.
Gary, you got any comments?
Yeah, actually, Susan kind of touched on them. I really felt like the extra dollars could go up to age-friendly for the work that they're doing for our members of the community that can't get back and forth to Bend and other places for appointments. And looking at how the allocations occurred, it's pretty close to what I had in mind in terms of what I submitted. So always nice to know that we're all in step with each other here. So again, if I were to send some money somewhere, I would probably push it up towards age-friendly sisters and the flag.
And the flags.
My question with age-friendly sisters was that I know a lot of that had to do with insurance, and I know that one of the rules is that, the money is not supposed to be going to kind of general operating expenses. So I wasn't sure where that actually fell, because that kind of sounded like a kind of a rote operating expense for any organization. So, I kind of went low on mine because of that.
Yeah.
I did too.
It was 4,000 for the people to reimburse their gas and 1,000 for the insurance per year. And they were asking for 2 years, so 2,000 was the insurance and the other 3,000 is pay the people. Yeah. So we could go up to the 3,000 maybe.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, if that's the case, and you have the applications, right? You can look at that, or?
I do not have them with me.
Okay, sorry.
I had more interest in giving the Cemetery Preservation Committee more money, in the respect that I think they made a good case that because they are in this known struggle that nobody knows the owner of that property, it makes it almost impossible for them to get any grant funding because they don't technically own the property. And so, which I knew of that situation beforehand, but I think they made a good case for that as well. And so, I had marked it as just kind of, they did a nice job of fleshing out, material costs and labor costs. And I kind of went the material costs route on that one, which was around $2,000. I just felt that because we were maybe their only option for money anywhere, I was a little more friendly to that project. Also, there is a lot of people who need tool sheds, and there's one organization that builds structures, and I think we really should get these people together.
Right.
I think they can help them out, each other out.
Andrea?
No, I don't have any problem with the way it is right now. If we're talking about, getting additional funding to needy organizations, I agree that age-friendly sisters is the way I would go.
Okay. I'm the same.
Could I make another statement?
Sure. We're not done yet.
Yeah, so, we don't have to put the remainder to one place. So we can separate it out to the 3 that we've mentioned.
I wasn't sure of the cemetery, in the sense that I wasn't real sure how that helped our community under the criteria.
It's cultural and historic.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
it's also
not in our community.
I know, but a lot of these don't, the the trailer to go out into the forest and help the houseless, that's not in our community either. That's outside of our boundaries. So that's how I looked at it. There's a lot of these, you know, expanded beyond the city limits. So,
Excuse me, no comment, please, thank you. I appreciate you, but
and the, you know, the other thing you know, item I liked was, you know, the many different things, you know, the Sisters Farmers Market was proposing. I know they had a big ask there, but, you know, that is an organization that helps and touches everybody in the community, young, old, food donations, artists,
if,
centrally located and, you know, and they, you know, they do a lot of stuff that touches a lot of people,
So
so.
we have $780.
Right. So, and what was the, what
So
was
get
the,
specific.
yeah, so-
What do you want to go to where?
well, we can use, I mean, don't we all agree we want the flag thing taken care of?
it's $80.
So that's
Yeah,
in there.
Okay,
Yeah, so, okay, so.
okay.
That's 80
So we have
bucks.
$700.
$700.
For expedience, I really feel like that the age-friendly sisters, I think that,
Councilor Ross has got his hand raised.
go ahead, Counselor Ross.
No, just wanted to add that I agree with where things are going. And the one that we've kind of hopped over 2 or 3 times that just to really complicate matters is the diaper changing stations and small businesses. I think that that, you know, we have a lot of younger parents in town, and that was something I thought deserved a little more respect than it's gotten. However, I do think that given the amount of money that's left, let's make it work and do something more effective and look at it for the age-friendly sisters.
And I'm just gonna say this is exactly why I was kind of hoping to expand the conversation about giving away a little more money
Me too.
during the budget session. But that's okay. We have a plan to do that now. So let's get through this. I would like to just put it out there, 80 for flag replacement and the rest for age-friendly sisters. And if 2 other people decide that that's the thing to do, I think that that's probably what we should do.
I'd like to offer one other option.
Okay?
80 for the flag and split the difference between age-friendly sisters and the cemetery.
I'm not for that.
Okay.
Gary?
I'm not for that either. I really think that
I will
we
say,
start to nickel and dime this down too much, and it really doesn't have that much of an effect. I think that we should take that $800 and put it where it's going to do the most work.
Okay.
Okay, so,
I will second your motion.
okay.
I would prefer that extra money goes to the Sisters Farmers Market, but I'm in the minority, it looks like.
Make a motion, see if you can get some.
You might get support.
Yeah,
I moved for the balance to go to the Sisters Farmers Market.
I would agree with splitting that with the age-friendly sisters
and the farmer's market?
and the
I
farmers
mean, if
market.
that's,
I mean, because they do a lot of good.
I can agree with that.
Okay,
Okay.
how about you, Gary?
That works.
Oh, I had it unmuted. Yeah, sure. Like
Age-friendly
I said,
sisters half, farmers market half,
80
80
flags.
to flags.
Yeah.
Yep.
350. Yeah.
How'd the math come out, Joe?
Good, even with rounding, even with the new math.
All right.
With a new math.
Do we need to do anything else?
We will bring Joe was always great about putting a spreadsheet together and then handing it to a council, make a motion in the regular meeting.
Okay.
We have to read through this.
All right. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. And Mr. Mayor, just one quick comment. I'm 100% behind taking a look at this. We go into the budget to see if we can do something more for these organizations in our community that are in need.
Just a little more dynamic something, and then possibly it's a little more that we can kind of spread around the community.
Yes.
I think we're an
Great.
affluent community. I mean, I don't think that it hurts us a whole lot to give away 10,000 more and make it like 30.
And we did do a stair step this last year with taking FAN out of this process and giving them a direct line item in our budget. So that was kind
We
of,
did bump during COVID.
And I honestly believe that we may be able to find a way somehow to support our events and maybe pull that completely out of here as well in some dynamic way. I don't know if that's something we can do, but it's just a discussion for the future. Because our citywide events and honestly, some of the things that Sisters Parks and Rec are doing bring people to the community. And that should be acknowledged in
And the
more than just,
chamber and the
just our
rodeo
mouth.
And, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But citywide events
ones.
especially, I
Yeah.
think that they definitely bring people, and we can have that discussion later. Thank you for everybody's thoughtfulness on these community grants. Are super important. But this is going to end this workshop, and we will start in 10 minutes. We're going to take a 10-minute break to use. All right. I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023, 6:30 regular city council meeting. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance if you don't mind. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, Carrie, please. Are you okay? Okay, I'm here.
Council President Lum,
Here.
Councilor Lutz,
Here.
Councilor Cobb,
Here.
Councilor Ross.
Here, and I'm having trouble hearing you, Carrie.
Yeah, it sounds pretty low. We'll work on it, Gary.
Yep.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
I would move approval of the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you, Gary. Next up is visitor communication. Before we get started, the city council has something to say about our Sisters Cold Weather Shelter situation. As most of you may know, or if you don't, you might hear it for the first time tonight. The Sisters Cold Weather Shelter put in a new application. They pulled back their first application and reapplied, which gives us a completely new parameter to assess the situation. There's been some talk in the community about who's going to make the decision. The city council has decided that we are going to make the decision. We're going to consider the application itself. We're the elected community members here. We felt that staff could easily do a good job assessing that information, but it's more important that the officials that are elected to make some of these hard decisions were the people making the decision. To that end, we're going to have a special city council meeting on September 5th. It's a Tuesday night at 5 p.m. And that's when we're going to have a public meeting of which everybody is welcome to attend. Everybody is, there will be a time for visitor communication. We are inviting the applicant to be here as well, is that correct? Okay, so everybody will be in the same room and we'll go through the new application in a different light and with all the new information that we have. And at that time, City Council will give direction about what kind of direction will go after that. We will not make a final decision the night of the 5th, but we will be providing direction of which way we might think about going. So, but a final written, is it an ordinance or is it
It will be an
a?
ordinance. We're still working through that, whether it be a resolution or just a final written decision that the council would then approve.
Fair enough, and sorry that I'm popping you with questions right in the middle of it, but at a later meeting, whether it's a regular city council meeting on the 13th or another special meeting later in the month, that will be the ultimate decision when we actually have something in writing that that everybody knows is coming, and that will be shown ahead of time before that meeting with proper notice requirements. Okay. There's nothing else on the agenda about the cold weather shelter, but this is now our time for visitor communication, which means you can talk about that if you like. It is certainly part of the record when you speak in front of us. It does go into a matter of record because this is a public meeting. Last time we had a lot of people in the room And we started with the people in the room first before the people on Zoom. Today, we're going to switch it up. So people on Zoom are going to get the first chance to make public comment on anything that you wish. Please remember, we're going to do 3 minutes. So when your name is called, be ready. If you don't have anything to say, please say no comment, and we'll move to the next person in line. And again, I will be timing 3 minutes, so please be as brief as possible. Thank you.
So folks on Zoom, if you would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand and I'll call on you as I see the hands raised. And I will give you permissions to talk. So Rima Gibbet, I am giving you permissions to speak. And if you'd like to go, and what you're talking about, addressing, please.
Great, can you hear me? Wonderful, thank you so much. I wanted to just say thank you for having the meeting and for listening. My comments are two things. One is I was pleased to hear Paul Bertegna and his partners report on the sustainability plan during the workshop. And I would urge that in addition to what was there, they make sure to add to increase wildlife corridors into the parks and open spaces portion, that wildlife corridors connect all natural spaces throughout the city so that the wildlife can cross the city without having to, just having to be crossing roads and that sort of thing. Or if they are crossing roads, it's very clear with natural spaces for the wildlife to go. I also recognize that the dark skies ordinance, which you just also talked about, is supported by the sustainability plan. And I would urge that some aspects of dark skies be added into the sustainability plan. And then I would also like to just reiterate that during that discussion, there was some discussion about lights being safe versus complying. And I want to reiterate that lights that are in compliance with dark skies are also safe because they don't glare. And so they don't cause light blindness. And so they shine the light where it needs to be seen. So lights that are in compliance are also safe. And I also am under the understanding that the Cascade streetlights are run by the city, not by ODOT. And so I wanted to just clarify that. I know Paul was going to talk with Scott about that, but for the record, that has been my understanding, and that was talked about at the Planning Commission meeting a few weeks ago. I really appreciate all your work. The final thing I would say is I would urge that the consultant who's working for Dark Skies, the Dark Skies ordinance, be really clear about what aspects need to be included into this dark sky ordinance so that for IDA certification, so that it doesn't have to be done in a retroactive way. Thank you so much for listening to this, and I really appreciate the work you all are doing.
Thank you, Rima.
Is there anybody else on Zoom who would like to make a public comment? Please raise your hand. And I am seeing none, so we will move to the participants in the room.
All right, who do we have first?
Amanda Moore, you'll come up to the.
Hi, guys. Good to see you all. First off, I would like to address the whole dark skies agenda. First off, buying a home in Sisters took me quite a while, but I did it. I'm a hard worker. I work quite a few jobs, and I do everything I can. Buying a home in Sisters, where I bought, I was told that the land behind me was going to be a dog park or going to be a city park. It was later turned into a low-income apartment complex. Did I complain? No, I did not. Everybody should have a place to live, bottom line. The lights that are in that apartment complex shine into my bedroom window, my living room window, my dining room window. It is bright. I'm talking, they're 18-foot lights shining into every one of my windows, which is absolutely horrific. So dark skies, heck yeah, I would have loved dark skies in my community, but do I get them? Heck no, I do not. Is that fair to me? No. Am I complaining about other people's their Christmas lights? Heck no. Everybody should have those, bottom line, okay? That's all I'm saying. But take care of the lights over there first. That's number one. Number two, the cemetery. My family has been here since the 40s. My mom has been trying to get a plot on that property for quite some time because we have family that are buried in there. She's trying to get a family plot just to get our names on it because our family has died here year after year after year since the 40s. The woman that owns it, I don't know if, like you guys said, you don't know who owns it or whatever, but the T-Walts do. So if you want to find out who owns it, talk to Gary and Daryl T-Walt. Those two know who owns it. They told us flat out, I'm sorry, but we were told that we are no longer allowed to take anything into that property. Well, if we can't even have a family plot, since our family's been here since the 40s, just to put our family name on a stone to represent our families, and we're not allowed to do that, that is not okay on my end. I mean, we should be representing and supporting and, you know, celebrating our family that has been here, that started Sisters from the very beginning. Back when it was dirt roads and my family ran on the dirt roads barefoot when they were too poor to have shoes. Okay, that's number one. That was number two, sorry. Number three is the community warming shelter, the cold warming shelter, okay? This Lou man keeps telling us that it is already done and over and it's already a done deal thing, and that take the hint that it's coming in no matter what, if we like it or not. You can keep watching everything on Facebook. I'm sorry, I am the one that runs the community updates and news on Facebook. I'm very controversial. I'm very sorry about that, but I'm not going to apologize on other levels. That being said, I am supporting and protecting every community member in this entire community. And if we cannot have marijuana dispensaries in this town, and we all have to vote on a dispensary to be put into our town, then we should have a vote on something as big as a marijuana dispensary should be voted on, as long as a homeless shelter. That is a huge decision to make. Huge. The people, the community of Sisters should be able to vote on that as well. We should not be just doing this on, but I beg of all of you to please take that into consideration. 98% of the community do not want this cold weather shelter to go into our community. And if you would like, I can show you video of a man that just posted on Facebook of a cold weather shelter person standing in front of Sisters screaming because she was in the middle of a the cop would not let her leave because he was scared for her, and she's screaming, saying how horrible of a community we are. This is not what we want to magnet to Sisters. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. And you're more than welcome. No, it's fine. You're more than welcome to email City Council and send video or point us in something. And anything and this is for everybody, anything you send to City Council through email is also part of the record, okay? Thank you very much. Yeah, just want you guys to know that. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
I voted for you.
Let's not go there. Thank you. I appreciate the sentiment, but thank you.
Nancy Bright.
Nancy, come on up. Thank you for coming tonight.
I won't be very controversial, I hope. I'm going to read my comment because I want it to punch. My name is Nancy Bright. I live at 69860 Kemp Polk Road in Sisters. I am a gardener. This is my 10th season at Sisters Community Garden. The garden is located on the southeast corner of Benny and Julie Benson's Sisters Eagle Air property on Barclay Drive. Bensons have generously, and I mean generously, hosted Sisters Community Garden since 2012. But in early May, they asked the garden's leadership to find a new location for the garden. Since May, we have contacted every lead that might result in a new garden site. Landowners and organizations are sympathetic, but have not offered land. In fact, they don't even return the call. That is why I am here. I'm asking City Council to prioritize siting Sisters Community Garden on undeveloped parkland I am asking for myself. I am asking as a representative for all the gardeners at Sisters Community Garden. I don't know if you've been to our garden. I invite you to visit. Whoever placed our garden on the park system map in the Parks Master Plan 2023 was right in doing so. Sisters Community Garden is a park. It is a well-maintained, welcoming space. Everyone is welcome. It is a place where one can breathe a little easier because it's beautiful. Sisters Community Garden is a self-funded 501c3 nonprofit governed by an elected board. The garden is maintained and improved by gardeners volunteering and working together. Through conversations and workshops, we try to grow gardeners' knowledge of how to successfully garden in Sisters' harsh climate. 8 families with school-aged children and younger are gardeners this year, as are several young singles. Of course, most of us are older. Despite our age differences, community gardeners are united by the love of gardening, and more than plants are grown at the garden. Interesting conversations spring up and relationships develop, friendships grow. A beekeeper keeps 2 hives at our garden. He reports these 2 are his most productive hives. Our flowers and milkweed bed are loved by the bees, butterflies too. A rare beneficial wasp of a frightening size can't resist the milkweed nectar. Again, I encourage you to grant Sisters Community Garden undeveloped parkland. If I may be so bold, Sun Ranch Park seems the perfect site for our garden to be. The gardeners believe that we could build a new community garden at little cost to the city. We're confident we can gather the volunteers, get the grants, and raise the capital necessary to build a new garden on city property. We just need land. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Michael?
Hello, Michael.
City manager, when I talked to city manager 2 Mondays ago, and when he was leaving out the door 20 minutes ago, walking out the door 20 minutes ago, I had something that said, I'd like to talk to you. He said, you'll be back. Don't dismiss it as you did. We were talking out there with the sheriff deputies. And when I was talking to him 2 Mondays ago, I was trying to get to the point that, which I've been trying to do for many years, this is very serious. And when I spoke to him, he seemed very open to my commentary on things that are way outside the box. Also mentioning I have or did have a relative, but I haven't spoken to for now 7.5 years because everything got too bad. And when you're hanging by a rope in the public square, no one's doing anything. You can't just keep talking to people like I've been doing with you, which is wrong. And that person happened to be grew up reading a lot of books, world books, everything books, and being a journalist for 40 years and all, New York Times at the end, whole darn thing. So it's very intelligent, though when I talked to her, I didn't talk for a long time, for about 2 years. I spoke to her and she understood of things like books that I'm just subconsciously aware of these things do way more damage than good. And she understood that, even though she was the book leader. It replaces doing life. It's an interesting bulletin, and there's a picture of a lady, you probably know who that is, who's written 40 books and used to be the director of mental health services for Deschutes County before she did that. And I mean, there are people, and that relative and other people would understand that when I say you can look at her and just by the picture, her body language, it's in a whole different world than people that often have what you call mental illness, because there's people like this that is all mental. You can do things mental, wow, I got a story in my head. I can make a story of mental, and you can read it mental. Wow, what does that have to do with life? It takes away from development. Another paper, guy falls off North Sisters, and I used to be a mountain goat like you won't believe, but I never did that here in Central Oregon. And he fell off a few weeks ago, and another mountaineer talking about North Sisters. Any handhold looking thing that you think you want to grab onto is guilty until proven innocent. He's talking about society to me. It's all loose rock and Scrabble. I wouldn't have fallen over because that guy's more of a nerd. I was a mountain goat, earth person. You know, nothing against the guy. But reason I mention this, they couldn't find where he was, so they brought an 11-year-old up there with a drone of all things. And this is what his father said. They were from Redmond. He came up there and they hiked up to the mountain and he threw on the drone and saw where some of the guy's stuff was. I was very proud of my son, said the father, choking up, when I told him, you need to do this thing that you're not going to like doing, walking that far up and all climbing. You need to do it because there is a possibility someone is suffering quite a bit. I think he understood I think he understood in that call the importance of service. You know, and I've heard, you know, this is the first time they see things like this. And of course, it's a physical body, which changes everything. There was a guy, a homeless person in town who also knew that the whole modern mental health service thing was so upside down. But, you know, he's not here anymore. You know, he used to say, yeah, I should cover you with blood, throw you out on the road, you know, then they'll do anything. I'll say, no, and they'll tell them why I did it, and they'll throw me in, you know, the psych ward, you know. And it is that brutal. It is that brutal. And they won't even let me see a psychiatrist. They make it extremely worse. And he heard me say what a lady who works at the bookstore, even when I was telling me about it, well, I'll say it. She said, yes, this is in the winter. I can't talk to her anymore because she won't do anything. But she said, they are a sociopath. And she repetitively said, they're a sociopath, repetitively. And then explaining other things that happen, like young people grabbing AR-15 and shooting people because artificial people, that's just a byproduct of that. She completely understands.
Michael.
The drug use, et cetera. You got it?
Yeah.
And he understood at the moment. I need movement.
Thank you, Michael. Okay.
Amy Larrabee.
Okay. Hi, my name is Amy Larrabee. I live in the city of Sisters, or at least in this community. I think I'm technically outside, but there's a couple things I want to address. The gal with the garden, that is a staple to Sisters for sure. I believe that we should be teaching our middle schoolers and our high school how to healthy, sustained living, especially in the world and the economy that we have, hydroponic type gardening and things like that, because, hey, what do we need to survive? Food and water. So how can we use our resources and do that? And that should be a requirement in our school system. But that's kind of a whole separate thing that just came into my mind because of what this gal was saying. So I think definitely, if the city is going to get more money for grants, definitely in looking into the gardening area for sure. The other thing I'd like to address is obviously the cold weather shelter. I know the meeting is going to be later, but in consideration prior to that meeting and through that meeting, I just have a question. Is it true that to bring a marijuana dispensary into Sisters, that we do have to get community vote for that? Is that true or false? Or is that something the council decides?
There was a vote on it in the past, and we have code, but we're not really supposed to have a discussion.
Okay, no problem. You said enough.
You can ask city staff.
Sure.
They know it better than I do.
Okay,
actually,
plenty.
so.
That's plenty. So that's one drug, whether it's legal in Oregon or not. That's a drug, right? I'm not saying all homeless people or anyone, and not everyone certainly, that's going to use the cold weather shelter is going to have access to drugs. But if there is one person, just one, that brings fentanyl, meth, cocaine into this community, as a community, I feel like we should have a vote in who we are bringing in. You said something, Mayor, about or someone about what brings people into Sisters. What are things that we do in the community that bring people to our city so that our business owners can thrive on the tourist economy? Bringing in a shelter is not going to help the business owners here. It's not. They are not, the people that are staying there are not going to purchase enough goods to make it good for the business owners. And I have 4 children that I raised in this community. 3 of them are out of the school system and out of high school, and 1 is still currently in a private school here because of all the other things. But it's not safe for our children to bring in people that have mental health illness. We are not equipped for that. If you guys want to put your community dollars towards Help for Sisters, it should be in psychiatric care. We should bring in psychologists for the people that live and work here, not for people that possibly are going to be bussed over or whatever. I don't know the rumors going on, but this is not something that I think just 4 or 5 people should be voting for. It should be the community because it affects the entire community. And one other thing to follow up, I live in the woods, and the tents that have gone up between here and Tollgate, I don't live in Tollgate, but I live near Tollgate in the woods. The influx of tents and RVs that have been in there, and I'm not against that, I RV all the time out in the wilderness, have quadrupled since the city put a bucks in the woods. The garbage amount has completely just manifested. It's insane. The amount of people that have been attracted to that area because we provided something to them has, again, like I said, quadrupled. I have video of a trailer that's been burnt down, most likely from drug use or just not being careful enough. And there was looters picking through all the things, trying to find treasures. It's not something we want to bring. I want to feel safe riding my bike through the woods with my 6-year-old. And I no longer feel safe. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, that's all? Okay. Thank you, everybody, for speaking. We do listen, so. All right, next up is the consent agenda. I would like to note that the consent agenda is recommendation of Jennifer Less to be appointed to the County Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, BPAC, for a 3-year term. And I think it's kind of special, so it's a new thing. We haven't done that before, right? So, thanks.
For a while, there used to be a council rep, but it's been a while.
Okay, well, not since I've been here, so that's only 5 years, sorry. We need.
I would move approval of the consent agenda.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Gary?
Aye.
Thank you.
Can I vote on that?
I think.
Nope.
You're not getting paid, so it's probably okay.
I will do more work for free.
Yeah, there you go. We're gonna double your salary.
Yeah.
0 to 0. Okay, next up is council business discussion and consideration of a motion to award community grant funds for fiscal year 2023-24. Does there need to be any further discussion on this?
I don't think so.
Okay. Sorry, you got all the work.
Yeah. I move to award community grant funds for the fiscal year 2023-24 to Age-Friendly Sisters Country, $3,110. Assistance League of Bend at $900. Camp Polk Pioneer Cemetery Preservation Committee, $814. Citizens for Community, $1,700. Discover Your Northwest Community Leadership Initiative, $760. Family Friendly Restroom Team, $710. Heart of Oregon Corps, $1,000. Rotary Club of Sisters, $500. See the Signs, $450. Sisters Area Chamber of Commerce, $1,040. Sisters Cold Weather Shelter, $1,150. Sisters Farmers Market, $1,690. Sisters Folk Festival, $940. Sisters Quilt Show, $1,176. Sisters Park and Recreation District, $1,250. Sisters Science Club, $670. Sisters VSW Post, $8138, $900. Soul Sisters Opportunity For Unified Living, $600. The Environmental Center, $640, for a total of $20,000.
We have a motion.
I second.
Thank you, Gary. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right. On to staff comments.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. I will start and then we'll bring up staff. Couple schedule updates and then a question about schedule. So the September 5th special meeting, like we talked about, we'll get the public notices out and make sure we get the word out about the public hearing on the 5th and also speak with the applicant about that evening, logistics. September 27th is your joint meeting with the county commission. And not to spring it on you right now, but if you do have topics or agenda items that you're interested in speaking with the county and staff updates and things like that that we can prepare for, we'd love to get your input on that. This will be my first joint meeting, so I'm not really sure how they were run in the past, but understand they're pretty productive.
It's the mayor's show.
It's the mayor's show. Okay, great. But yeah, just send us your ideas and we can get those over to the county as well. There was a couple public comments tonight about a public vote on certain topics, and that's something that I think that we could probably add into our staff report about that question, addressing that question, you know, and sort of the legal framework around this application with the House bill, and then also public votes and whether they're binding or not, especially in the case of these type of emergency shelter applications. So I think it might be helpful because we've seen that question come in through email as well.
Okay, so you're gonna put that in the findings before the meeting is what you're saying?
Yeah, or we could put that as part of, like, we can maybe respond to some of these frequently asked questions in the staff report that we can get out.
That would be very helpful.
Yeah.
I think it would, because I think a lot of people have questions about it. No,
I just have, it's very specific, that September 5th, is that the meeting about the?
yeah, sorry, if you weren't here earlier, we did announce
I
it.
just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, thank you, and I almost said that when he was talking.
I missed that, that detail, yes.
Yeah, because
Public hearing on the application for the emergency cold weather shelter will be on September 5th, so.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and that's it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. Paul. Do you want, what do you want, Carrie? Do you care? Were you trying, oh, you lost a bet, didn't you?
Make sure that mic is Thank you.
Yep, it's on.
Thanks, Paul.
Just a couple quick things. So we finished up our chip seal project. We'll have striping happening in the next couple weeks, and that'll also occur over on our slurry seal project. We're starting to already prep for the Folk Fest. We're going to meet with them next week and start just ironing out details for this year. So we've started our meter replacement program, our water meter replacement program, focusing on obviously the older meters as well as the larger water users and the larger meters in the system. And that's something that was recommended in the master plan that you just approved, and so we're going to carry it out.
It all ties together.
Yep. And then we're in the middle of our second review on the water rate study analysis that's being done. And we had them run a couple of different assumptions on debt term limits, billing methodology options. So we got that spreadsheet back to us a couple days ago. We're going to go through it and meet on that probably early next week. So we're making progress on that, and we'll be bringing that to you in the future. So I think that's all I had. If you have any questions, more than happy to answer them.
Gary, you got anything?
The only question I have, Paul, is I know that with the existing meters, you're able to work on them and repair them out at the center. Will these new meters be equally repairable on the part of your staff?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. Yeah, that's good news. Thank you.
And I wanted to ask about the chip seal, because that's in front of my house, obviously. It's done. So whatever's out there is what's going to be there, right?
It is. So the fog seal treatment went on last week, and yeah, it's complete.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah. Yep. Turned out great.
Even and it just looks, it looks good.
Looks brand new.
And how long before you think you'll have to do anything in the areas that we just did?
7 years. So the
7
last
years.
time we did a chip seal treatment up there was 2016.
Right.
And that's kind of the target area, depending on, what kind of winters we have and how the pavement's holding up and how the seal's holding up.
Yeah. I mean, I get questions once in a while like, well, why do we do that? Well, that's a pain in the ass. Excuse me, pain in the rear. And the honest answer is because if we don't do that, they just get worse and worse and worse. And we have some of the nicest roads in Central Oregon, if you ask me. When we compare ourselves to the biggest town in Deschutes County, we're way better. No offense to anybody who lives down there. So, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Anybody else have any questions?
I had a question, and weird question, but as a elected official in a tourist town, obviously following very closely, what happened in Lahaina, and you probably don't have any answers to this, but I'll be curious to see how it, the details that come together. Obviously, there were a lot of moving parts to that tragedy, but how much, water system failures played a part in that, and hoping that, you or we can stay abreast of any of that kind of information that comes up, so that when we are working on, our council goal of wildfire mitigation, that's something that we're highly cognizant of and thinking of. I know that, we just went through the whole water sewer master plan a few months ago, and there's definitely a lot of resiliency and redundancy stuff in there already. So I'm pretty confident that we're probably okay, but I just, I'm highly interested in learning what we can, if we don't learn from these tragic deaths of people, that's our own fault. And it's the one thing we can do to honor people who've, lost their lives like that, is to learn what we can and implement in our community, keep our community safe. So, yeah, I'd just be curious as time moves on, if you were, in your world of information and newsletters and all that kind of stuff, if anything comes up in that regard, so, I'd like to hear about it. And because I know we'll be talking about resiliency in this year, so. That's
Absolutely.
all. Kind
You
of
bet.
just a comment more than a question.
I was like, where's the question mark? No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Do you have anything?
Red ribbon around pine trees on South Pine, are those city ribbons?
They are not. So they are trees that were proposed to be removed for development in a driveway. And that's being looked at again by not only the property owner, but the Urban Forestry Board. So there's been no approval for those trees to be removed.
So if they did it now, we would have a situation like we've had before where they just don't want to they should not do that.
And we've been in contact with them.
Good, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Susan, anything? No. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your hard work. Carrie, go ahead.
Just a couple of things.
Joe, you're next.
I am meeting with the Oregon Arts Commission and the Cultural Arts District early September. They last year talked about doing, I think we sent an email out about the cultural and arts district potential that did not get funding from the state this year, but we're still working with their representative from Bend. I'll meet with her in September and then trying to pull together a workshop of interested people in the arts community in October, just to see where we might be able to go with this, with funding or without. So just trying to keep that door open with the state and with our local folks. And then we're also, Jordan and I are meeting with the director of the Sisters Arts Association on Monday, and some of his partners, just to kind of get a feel for where they're at and what they're doing. So moving that kind of positive, fun stuff forward. And then also have been working towards a Civic Leadership Academy that you had helped budget for. I'm working right now with C4C on a letter of interest, answering a bunch of questions about a grant for the Ford Family Foundation, which is about $20,000 in funding for that. So met with C4C this week, and we're working on that together. And you will at some point see that hopefully that grant come across your dais. Otherwise, I have a Explore Sisters board meeting tomorrow. Jordan's going to be our special guest, Michael, and just general projects, community grants, and then we'll be rolling into late September, early October into open board positions and recruitment for that. So that's coming up.
Awesome. May I ask, and if you can't answer, it's okay. Do you know how many people spoke? I didn't write the number down.
5.
5, okay, and 6.
No, 4 here and 1 up there. So
Okay, 5
Yeah.
total. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I didn't do that. Does anybody have any questions for Gary?
Speaking of art, is there any movement on the artwork need for the roundabout?
So that's a later project, probably going into if they're next fall, Paul, is my guess, is when we'll start working on that. I did just get a call from another city that is actually working with ODOT on some art. So I have a contact now. They're going to be doing this project ahead of us, even though we've already done one. It'll be interesting to see what they come up with and what their plan is. So it might look a little different than we did last time.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to share with council that I had a constituent suggest that we put in place license plate readers for the speeders that go through town at over 25 miles an hour, and then that might generate funds to the city with tickets.
You want to be a speed trap.
Yeah, speed trap, yeah. Anyway, that was the suggestion.
Okay, that would be a good discussion to have sometime, maybe.
Maybe, maybe not.
Gary, anything for Gary?
No, nothing, no.
Okay. Andrea, anything? Thanks for that art district thing. I know that I talked to him a while back, and I tried to facilitate conversations and it didn't work out so well. So I thank you for taking the lead on that. I think it's a very interesting concept to try and I think promote and amplify the art in our town. We're a very artsy town, and I think that anything we can do to help all of them. They're all starving, right? Starving artists. So, but anyway, I really like that program. I think it has some merit, and I think it's kind of a sisters kind of thing to do. So we'll see. Thank you for that, Joe. Thanks, Gary.
Okay, I just have a few things as well. So last Friday, I attended the CIS Insurance Board meeting over at Five Pine. They invited staff to go over there, and so I represented the city. It was great to connect with them. You know, obviously, being our insurance, they've got a lot to do with how these things, wildfires and such, affect us. And so it was really nice to put some names to some faces and just kind of network with them. So they were really happy to be here. Not so much happy about the smoke, but they're not alone in that respect. A couple more things. So it's audit season, as usually is this time of year. So just finished up a payroll audit. We send that to SAFE for workman's comp purposes, and that just affects kind of our workman's comp premium, but it takes a long time to put all that data together. So I put my head down and got that done, and then we're also in the midst of our financial annual audit. So this is kind of the early stages of it, of course. They'll be having field work on the 13th of September, but just kind of getting familiar with the process of the new auditors and how they do things and things of that nature. We're also putting the word out for our payment system that's changing. I think I've told you about that. So, you know, any utility customer will be able to make online payments anytime or call-in payments. And so we're just, we've sent out some flyers with bills and just fielding a lot of calls and informing people of that change, which I think will be really beneficial to folks, not only just for the convenience, but for the security on our end as well. And then lastly, just supporting Paul and Public Works Department in that rate study. So there's a lot of information there, a lot of dynamic evaluation in that as well. So
a lot of Excel work.
Oh yeah, those guys, yeah, they blow me out of the water. It's phenomenal.
I couldn't go. I could not go.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm thinking the same. So that's all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
Gary, you got anything?
Just a curiosity question. As we're getting to the end of the summer, how are our numbers for the campground looking?
Campground's good. You know, with some of the policies we have in place, it hasn't been very full, but with that, there hasn't been a lot of refunds because we don't exercise that with people that are canceling because there's a lot of uncertainty with smoke too. It could clear up at any given time. So that's the stance the Parks Board and staff has taken with that respect. However, the people that have come in, kind of just on a one-night basis, we've seen that trickle down quite a bit in the last week and a half, of course. So that's affecting it a little bit. Hopefully that clears up and then we can get some momentum for, folk festival crowd. And we've been seeing, just more people staying there in the October months. But I will say that it's been great having that kiosk that I've been talking about last year. So we've gotten really good data out of that, and people a little bit more kind of on the honor system there with that, as maybe they weren't before if they were just stuffing cash into an envelope. So that's been much better just for our analysis as staff and also for the camp hosts and their job. So.
Okay, anybody else have a question? So we do audits, huh?
Oh, yeah, everything, audit ourselves, and everyone likes to audit us, so we're happy to do that.
Thank you. It's important that people know we are very good stewards of the money we balance every year, right?
Absolutely, yep.
People think that we don't, but we do.
Analyze, foot, agree, reconcile every month, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Scott, the heavy hitter.
Yeah.
That's right.
So just an update on the some other projects that the Community Development Department's working on. The UGB sufficiency report update is moving along. We just got a draft today, and we were talking with the consultants. We'll get it kind of reviewed and revised and ready for public consumption here soon. And so the thought was that we could have the consultants here to present it to a joint meeting of the Planning Commission and the City Council at the same time. We talked about initially September 21st, but that sounds like you got probably one more meeting than you guys would probably like to have in September. It'd be like a week after a joint meeting with the county commissioners. So that might have to be put off to October. We don't want to put it off too long, but that's out there. You will be seeing a housekeeping ordinance coming through next meeting that Emmy in our office is processing. And thankfully it's just non-substantive, non-policy, spelling errors, clarifications. It'll be the lightest amendment that you've ever experienced. We haven't had any public comment on it yet, so I don't anticipate it either. So it's a great opportunity for Emmy to get in front of the council and make a presentation and process a text amendment. So, we do, just to update you on code enforcement situations, we do have a hearing for an appeal of a violation at 252 South Elm, just to give you guys an update on that. That will be occurring on September 27th. It'll be in front of the hearings officer that the city's contracted with. So just in case you're wondering about that.
Is that our first hearing with this here?
It will be, yeah. Yep. Talking about some more meatier development code amendments. You guys have been talking a lot about fire preparedness. The defensible space amendments are on the list to be start work sessioning with the Planning Commission and the Council as soon as we can. Matt Martin is already going to start working on. He's gathering model ordinances from other communities to kind of help with designing ours. And so that I know is a high priority, and will be coming forth as soon as we can humanly get them through and agendas open up. Then the short-term rental code, I know that that was a council goal to reevaluate that, and I think September 13th that we're going to have a work session, so we'll be able to staff understand better what elements of the short-term rental ordinance you guys want to take a look at so that we can focus our efforts and bring it back. We do have a site plan proposal for the Sunset Meadows multifamily piece for an 84-unit multifamily development. So some much-needed multifamily units in the pipeline there. That actually is the first phase that they're going forth on that Sunset Meadows project is the multifamily. So
That's unusual.
that's one of, there's two phases. It's one of the early phases. I guess I should correct that there are some single family and attached lots, but the multifamily is certainly part of the first two phases, whereas they wanted it to be the last phase originally. So that'll come online sooner than later. To that end, building permits have slowed down considerably for new single family starts. I think that's just, it's evident, to the winds of the economy and the interest rates, but it's also indicative of the fact that a lot of our master plan communities have reached build out stage. I think Mackenzie Meadows is now done and is nearing the CO for, well, it's getting close. I think they have all their building permits in place, and they're starting to knock off certificate of occupancies, which will result in opening up one of those streets that were barricaded. Getting close to that point. So you'll see that happen here in the near future. Once they reach a certain number of COs, it's tied to the opening of the street. I think that's Williamson.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. But we have the Woodlands coming online. There's a handful of permits that have come through there, and we'll see how it goes.
Mackenzie Meadows, how many years did they anticipate build out as opposed to how many years they actually took? Do you know?
Which project?
Mackenzie Meadows.
Oh, boy. That's a good question. I don't have the answer to that.
That's fine. I
Yeah.
was just wondering, sometimes they say, oh, it'll be 10 years to build out, and then it's a lot less. And sometimes.
Didn't it start in like 05? Wasn't that a 05 annexation?
I think it was.
Annexation agreement, and then.
No, I think.
I want to say it was like
later than that.
2018, 17.
Yeah, it was after I was on council, so it was.
The annexation of Mackenzie Meadows?
Oh, the annex.
The annexation.
Yeah, no, I was talking
Because that's
about
the
when they
start,
started.
that's the start, that's
Right.
like the starting point.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's true.
Okay, you're in the city, let's develop it, and it went
Right.
through a lot of iterations, but yeah, whatever. It's
Okay,
all-
I get what you're saying.
I mean, it's much like the Woodlands. I mean, that was spent forest property, but it was brought in the UGB in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, and it took 43 years. So things don't always happen at the pace that people expect, and that's just a given. Anyway, any questions for Scott? Gary, are you awake? Okay. Susan, do you got anything?
No.
Okay.
It is 9:30, but yes, I am.
I didn't see a glass of scotch, and I'm a little disappointed. I don't have anything for you. Just thanks for all the, taking a lot of shots on some of this stuff. Community development is like that sometimes, and I think you're probably fairly used to it.
Yep.
We appreciate all the hard work you do, and some of it's gonna get us now. So,
All right. Thanks a lot.
hey, thanks, Scott. All right, it's our turn. Gary, you're first, so you can get your bedtime.
Well, not much to report, obviously, but I'm looking very much forward to being in the flesh, as they like to say, at our next meeting. And I also appreciate the accommodations that have been made to allow this level of participation to occur during this difficult time. So that's about it. I think that I can tell that the technology works fairly well from my perspective, and I see y'all next week sometime or shortly thereafter. And regarding your previous comment, I think there's one waiting for me on the counter on the other side of the RV when we all sign off.
Let's hook up next week, Gary. Me and you. Okay. Who wants to go? I don't care.
The only thing I have to report is that we're trying to get the Charo board together with the governmental entities, the US and state entities that are involved in Deschutes County in the homeless situation, because so much of our homeless situation is happening on federal and state forested lands and whatever, that it's very, very difficult for cities to enact policies when they do not have authority over the property where the people are residing. And it's very difficult to get everybody into the room. We're hoping that the state entities will be amenable to working with us and coming up with some solutions, given that the state government has indicated that this is an emergency. And so hopefully they have the impetus to try and help. We have no idea how the federal government folks are going to work. We're very, very lucky in that our forestry people here are very accommodating and helpful, but it's not that way everywhere for sure. And so if we can get them all in the room, they've been trying to do it for a few weeks now. Want to get it done before next month. I just don't see how it's going to happen, but we'll see. I'll let you know if there's anything that progresses from that.
Okay.
I already made my statement, in the wrong place about.
No.
So.
I thought that was a question.
No, it was me,
Okay.
thinking.
You were excited, it's okay.
I thought it was the end of the night,
No,
So,
we're getting there though.
Yeah, I didn't have any meetings over the last 2 weeks, so no comment.
So you're just waiting on me to close this meeting.
Mhm.
I will say that I did go to the Oregon Mayors Association Conference in Hood River a couple weekends ago. Homelessness was right up there. There was people talking about different things in different ways, and Mayor Fitch from Redmond was there, and he has his way of, he likes things. The mayor of Bend was not there, but she has her ways of doing things, and I think it's different for every community. And I'm sorry, there's just not a one-size-fits-all answer for every community on homelessness, like there's no one-size-fits-all answer on traffic or fire resiliency or whatever. So that's what I learned. That was the biggest takeaway. There was a presentation on the Oregon Mayors Association Homelessness Task Force that many cities took advantage of. I think it was funded, but not as much as they wanted. But I really need to get back with OMA when I have a little bit of time and find out if there is some funding available. I think that if there is, we still might want to revisit that. And if there's some funding for something that helps out in our community, I think we should take advantage of it. I'm not about spending money for no reason, but if we can help with the trash situation or help with something specific, I think that it's not a terrible thing to relook at. I will do the work on that, at least at the beginning, and then if there is something, I will get back with you guys to see if there's anything there. If there's nothing there, there's nothing there. I get it. It's totally fine. Other than that, I do want the public to know that we are listening. I have always been intrigued about public votes on situations like this. I think that, in a true democracy situation, I think that there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not what we have. We really have a representative democracy, which is people have voted us in here to make some of these decisions. Now, you're going to do a little bit of homework and find out some stuff. That's great. I feel like the decision that we made, that we're going to make the decision, I think is the right one. I think it's heavy for staff, especially out now that it's out in our public meetings. I think the application changed that as well. And this is just how it's going to go now. It'll be a very public meeting. I expect us to be pretty full. People will have a chance to talk on both Zoom and in person, and it's the only thing on the agenda. So we're going to be here as long as we need to be to take care of that issue, and hopefully we can provide some direction at some point.
Or people can email as well.
People can definitely email.
It's also equally going into the record.
It's already started. The public record has already kind of started on this. It's not a land use action, so it's not these hard lines of like it is in land use, but we're kind of mimicking that because we need some kind of lane system.
You didn't mention them. You're talking about the Sisters Cold
I
Weather
am
Shelter.
talking about the cold weather shelter,
Yeah.
obviously, so it's the hot topic item.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything more to add than that, but then we'll see everybody on the 5th of September if
May-
you're interested.
May I ask the mayor a question?
Sure.
On that meeting that you went to, was that where you had the chest of stuff from Sisters for the?
That was, and thank you for reminding me. I had notes on that. I received donations from 2 other counselors, you guys, and there was a Oregon Mayors Association silent auction to raise money for small town mayors to get to the conference. Because small town mayors, let's just say Gates, the city staff is one person, the mayor, and a part-time bookkeeper. That's all they have. And so to go to a conference where it's, there's room and board for 3 nights at a hotel and the conference fees through LOC and OMA, the small town mayors don't get a chance. And to me, they're the most important people. They're the people that need the most help. If you're talking about city size and equity to legal issues and things like that, that's the only place they can get it. So with my own money, I bought a cooler, a Yeti cooler from a local retail place. I bought a bunch of stickers and covered it in stickers, and it's a pink cooler. And then I put stuff in it like beer and.
It's a pink cooler?
A pink Yeti cooler, you can't miss it, and it's got Sisters stickers all over it, retail stores and all kinds of stuff. And it made $275 for the silent auction. The silent auction as a whole raised $9,000.
Wow.
So that'll get a lot of mayors to, from like Mitchell and some other smaller towns to a conference where they can at least commiserate with other mayors about the things that they have to go through. They're almost all volunteers. I don't know if people know that still. City councilors and mayors, for the most part, are volunteers, and every once in a while you hear about, oh yeah, I get a $200 stipend. That doesn't cover anything, maybe a little gas, but this is what we go through in public service. We accept that, and we actually kind of enjoy it. Most of us, I think. No? But anyway, so thank you for your help on that. That was really cool. I have pictures I can send you if you want to see them.
Was it pink because of the Barbie movie?
No, I bought it. I bought it before last year's, and I didn't go to last year's because I got COVID last summer. So I didn't go, so I saved it for this year. I actually used it once, but then I cleaned it out. It was really cool. I'll show you a picture of it. I'll probably send it to Carrie and let Carrie send it to everybody just because it's kind of cute. And again, $9,000 is nothing to sneeze at for a silent auction.
No.
A couple of the things were like fishing trips and whaling things and, big ticket items. I was like, I just want a small thing. So
Ready for the hammer.
thank you for asking. See you later.